Keto Connect, Matt and Mega from KetoConnect.com or .net. And then
.net.
And then you guys have a podcast as well, Keto for Newbies.
Keto for Normies.
Normies.
Yes.
So you guys are the go-to keto people, and keto has swept this nation, I feel. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm excited to talk to you guys today, because I feel like at the same time, every day I feel like veganism is becoming so much more of a mainstream, not a bad word to say. This keto thing at the exact same time seems to be taking off, and there are two very different diets, but they do share a lot of similarities, I think. So I think we're really excited to talk to you guys about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think people just taking their health into their hands in general is leading people to do more, I guess you could say, extreme things. Veganism and keto are definitely on extreme ends of the spectrum as compared to like a standard diet. So I guess that's good to see.
Yeah. Okay, well, what led you guys to keto? Was it a weight loss journey? And, why did you decide to use this and change your lifestyle for keto?
Well, I've always been experimenting with my nutrition pretty, I was a vegetarian for a couple years. I played college basketball and I was graduating and I was like, I need to figure this out a little bit because I know when I stop all the activity, I'm going to just pack on the pounds because my diet was terrible and it didn't really matter at that time. So I tried a few different things. I tried just like intermittent fasting with the standard American diet, things like that. I tried a vegetarian diet for a while. And then I met her when I was a vegetarian. This is my co-host, Mega. And basically, everything was going pretty well. Like, I'm not one of the people that I quit being a vegan, a vegetarian, and then my life totally changed. I realized how malnourished I was. It was fine. Like, I was doing pretty good on a vegetarian diet. And I saw the film, That Sugar Film, and that kind of like just enlightened me a little bit to how much sugar I was eating in these so-called healthy foods, because I was a pretty healthy eater by most respects. So like, morning would be orange juice, maybe like some granola, oatmeal, things like that, but just like a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar. So I was like, if I don't do that for a while, this thing that is such a huge part of my diet without me really being that aware of it, how different will I feel? So I tried that, and I've just been sticking with it ever since. And we started together at the same time, basically.
Yeah, and for me, it's mostly been about finding something. I was a vegetarian for 8 years, growing up in an Indian household. It was almost vegan, a lot of lentils and just rice and whole wheat. But I wanted to find something that was sustainable long-term in the sense like I could eat and feel satisfied. With carbs, I never really felt that way, but eating a lot of fat helps me just like feel energized throughout the day without the lag and needing to eat constantly. So I enjoy that aspect.
And I think both of us, and I think this is true for a lot of people doing keto, are the type of people that don't have the best control over their food intake in general. And I think keto definitely really helps with that.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of people that just don't really think about it much and they eat the right amount of food on a daily basis. And it's not a big deal. We're not like that at all. So this has definitely helped us with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anyone in our generation, I guess, we're kind of the new Americans that
we all overeat.
We grew up overeating and living in lavish food lifestyles. So I guess it's time. I mean, I guess we're lucky we're figuring out.
Yeah, that's interesting, the bit about the amount of sugar in quote-unquote healthy foods, which is just such a travesty to like the American public because, you get your juices or your orange juice and your granola and you think that that's something healthy that you're eating, or like a Nutrigrain bar, That was like, oh, that's so healthy.
Or even a bowl of Cheerios.
But even like the juices, I went on a kick about this the last episode because people don't realize that when you're drinking orange juice, if you eat an orange, you get all this other stuff that's going to slow down how many oranges you're going to eat. But you're going to ingest 8 oranges. That's too much sugar that, your body necessarily doesn't need. So
yeah. Well, I guess before we go any further, a lot of people don't know what keto is.
Yeah. A little rundown.
Yeah. Can you briefly explain what it is, I guess?
Yeah. So it's basically the big concept behind it is a normal diet, pretty much every standard diet, you're using glucose for fuel, which is derived generally from carbs, or you can turn protein into glucose if needed. But a keto diet gets your body to use fat for fuel through ketones. So it's like a big shift. That's kind of, I think, what draws people to it. and why it's become such a fad lately, because people think, it's a totally different fuel system for your body, so it's going to be different, when really a lot of the same rules apply. Like, it's not magic. You have to still restrict your calories if you want to lose weight. But in general, the macronutrient ratio that you'll see to put your body into a state of ketosis will be like 75% of calories from fat, about 20% from protein. So that's a little bit lower than most Americans are getting. And then 5% or less from carbs. So it's pretty extreme in regards to the carb restriction. And when you tell someone to restrict their carb intake, the first thing they do is usually increase the protein.
Yeah.
Because fat is just so like,
It's a
just,
no-no.
yeah.
Can't touch it, yeah.
It's totally been removed from our food supply in a sense. Like when you go to the grocery store, you can't find fat really. So that's kind of not intuitive, but you definitely have to be adding in some fat if you want to be doing a good sustainable keto diet, in our opinions.
Okay. Well, sustainable on this ketosis is actually very interesting to me. So is this something that you can do long term? Like, are you going to plan to stay in ketosis, when you're like 60, Like, how's that look?
Yeah, that's a great question. And on like someone coming from a standard American diet, it's probably is going to be hard. It's going to take some trial and error getting used to it. And like when I'm 60, I'm probably going to be eating like cheesecake and stuff. Like I'm going to be indulging at age 60. But for the next good amount of time, obviously, unless new research comes to light that makes me change my mind, I'm going to stick with keto just because we're to the stage where we just want to be really productive on a day-to-day basis. That's what I find really beneficial about it, is just the no crash, just level energy levels. So that is enough for me to stick with it. And then obviously the ability to just control my food intake a little bit more. But yeah, I plan on sticking with it for a while. But we've kind of set our life up in a way to where it is more sustainable. And we try to, like, that's what a lot of what we do is we make recipes that make it easy for people that still need their old standard American diet foods to be translated to a keto diet. So we're trying to make it more approachable for people.
Yeah, and I was going to say for the foreseeable future, absolutely, I plan on sticking to it, even like through pregnancy and having children. And we talk about 60 as if it's old, but 60 is not old at all. So I don't plan. I think Matt was joking, but like I don't think we plan on indulging at the age of 60.
Oh, I wasn't joking.
Well, so I mean, I think our generation is different in the sense that we don't look to retirement as excitedly as, a lot of people do, or we don't want to like just kick back and be able to let go and, like it just doesn't make sense anymore for us. We want to work. We want to be productive for the rest of our remaining lives, even when we have kids. So I think when I'm 60, 70, if this is the best suited lifestyle for me and I'm the most energetic, I don't imagine shifting from it.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see just kind of the health guidelines and some of the food availability shift a little bit to make it easier by the time we're 70. Like I'm thinking keto might be easier to do at that time even.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're in the same boat. We see this as long-term. It is difficult for people a lot of times to go to a vegan diet, and people miss things. So, I mean, similar, I guess, to what you guys do, Lisa's website is pretty much like, here's how you can have nachos during football, or here's how you can still eat mac and cheese, and trying to ease people into it.
Right. But, okay, so ketosis is I'm trying to get like sciencey. You're forcing your body into ketosis, which is not necessarily a natural state, right? Right.
See, that's debatable. Some diehards will tell you ketosis is a natural state of the human body. I'm not sure about that. So you're saying that your body it's supposed to be burning our fat instead of glucose, like naturally? See, I don't know if that's true necessarily. I would need to look into this a little bit more, but I do just I like to think about like what we used to eat, our ancestors, and this is obviously like a hotly debated topic also. Yeah. I do think our ancestors probably spent a decent amount of time in ketosis just because of like the feast-famine type of lifestyle they were living. I wouldn't say it's the natural state, but I would definitely say it's not natural to never be in ketosis.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you guys do intermittent fasting, and I think that's a super beneficial like tool to use in your diet.
Yeah, my understanding
people usually
is that
gorge themselves, and they never give their body a chance to sit back and like process a little bit. So I don't know. I don't know about ketosis. I'm no scientist.
Well, my understanding is, it's a natural
function your body created. Ketones are a hormone.
A natural safety net for your body during that famine or during that time when your body, runs out of things to burn, I guess. So it does. So I guess, and I don't even know. We're fairly new to this. Do you guys cycle in and out of this? Are you constantly in ketosis?
We've tried cycling in and out a little bit more in the past. It's something we've gone away from. We don't really like it as much. But as far as
Can you physically tell? I'm sorry, when you go in and out?
Like, you can't really tell the exact moment you're like in and out, but
you can tell when you're out.
Yeah, kind of. So like we did something that was carb cycling, which was high carb day, 1 day a week.
Right.
And like when I took the first 50 grams of carbs in the morning, like very much mentally scattered.
Yeah.
And this is not to say like anyone doing 50 grams of carbs in the morning is going to get that, because if you're doing carbs all the time, you're way better at using them. That's kind of the give and take of this, is you're building a metabolic pathway. So like I can use ketones really well now. I can't use carbs as well.
Right.
Oh.
And
so if
even
you
like
went off the diet, you would probably really struggle to get your body back to normal.
There would be a transition period for sure.
And one thing to definitely keep in mind is like when you do ketosis really long term, your glycogen stores, they're at like 50% capacity. So if I were to carb up, I would not have as much glucose availability as like you guys do.
Right.
You have twice as much basically.
Okay.
Huh.
So, your kidneys, okay, let me think about this, but your kidneys use sugars. Like some of the cells in your kidneys can only use sugars like glucose to do certain functions for the kidneys. So your kidney, filters out toxins. Is it a worry that your kidneys are not working because they don't have that supply of glucose to work off of? Like we drink all the time. I need my kidneys at 110%.
All the time.
Yeah.
Seems like it, because when we podcast, we do.
Yeah.
No,
there's actually parts of your brain that only run off of glucose too. And this is actually where the 20 net carb metric comes from, is like, if your body has no carbs, it needs about 20 grams of carbs a day just to do like those base level functions to keep it running. So if you're at zero carbs, which a lot of people even do zero carb diets, your body makes glucose first out of protein and then second out of fat, which is like really inefficient. And generally when you're doing a lot of, it's called gluconeogenesis, turning protein and fats into glucose, it's like inefficient process, and it doesn't probably, like, you're not working as optimally when you're doing that.
Right.
So, yeah, but you can derive glucose from other sources in your body.
But it's just not as efficient. So you're saying get a little bit of carbs for those little functions?
Yeah, you could do that, but
even if you don't do the little bit of carbs, your body is going to produce them, so you still have them in your body.
Okay. Yeah, you shouldn't notice any kind of, like you're not going to notice anything crazy going wrong, like kidney function and stuff like that.
Okay. Then I have another question about calcium. Do you, I heard that, I heard on the grapevine, but so ketones is like a hormone, and it's an acidic hormone, and that when you have a release of ketones in your body, that it needs to, it needs alkaline, it needs to get its pH down, so it'll leach calcium, which is what's the acid? It's a very basic. So yeah, I always go through this out loud.
She walks us through it.
Calcium is a base, and it's found in your bones, and ketones is acidic, and so you need to neutralize that, so it pulls some of the calcium from your bones. Are you cognizant of calcium intake?
So vegans aren't the only ones accused of not getting enough calcium?
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not a concern we've ever really come across. And we get a lot of questions. The calcium one is not really one, but yeah, when you are doing keto, the first thing is electrolytes is like a huge issue, and it's because of the glycogen just being depleted from your body. So like sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium is an electrolyte as well, but it's not as necessary to supplement.
Okay.
But yeah, you want to definitely be supplementing electrolytes, but calcium is not really a big concern of ours.
Okay.
I guess we've never looked into, is red meat really rich in
Calcium?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but like cheese and stuff, you get
Right.
like a decent amount of calcium on a
lot of people
keto
do
diet.
high cheese content.
Yeah.
Which is not the best, but yeah, there's a lot of calcium in that way.
Well, that actually brings me to my next question is that, so a bad vegan and then a bad keto. Like when I tell people go be vegan and they're like, okay, and they're eating Doritos and Oreos and all this processed foods that it's like, it's vegan, but it's not healthy. Do you see a lot of like unhealthy keto and like how do you kind of like guide them in the right direction? Because it's like I could say go be vegan and someone's gonna eat like a fake hot dog, but then like a real hot dog, which is like a carcinogen and all, we shouldn't. I don't know, like you shouldn't eat that. But how do you kind of guide these people?
Yeah.
Is that a question?
How do you guys feel about the fake meat type of products? Do you guys
like
eat those a lot?
Beyond Beef and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
Some of the newer ones I get down with. I think part of the battle that the newer ones are having is they've come so far in taste, but taste was so shitty for so many years that people were just so scared of this stuff. But health-wise, I think that's still way up in the air. Taste-wise, it's getting unbelievable. And I'm 2 years vegan, so
I'm
and
an
coming
original
from
vegan, so I have.
Lisa's never had bacon ever
never.
in her whole entire life,
Yeah.
so she's weird.
Anyways,
Honestly, the vegan bacons are not that bad for compared to.
But they're not that good.
They're not good. But
They've
Yeah.
come a long way again.
Well,
Like that's another one that the sausage has come a long way, but the burgers I'm very impressed with. But again, a lot of what we do is like we're trying to be as health conscious as possible. So I think
I'm like ethically vegan, so even if like all the health stuff didn't matter, like I'm not gonna eat animals in any capacity because it's like I love them. Like that's a totally different subject. But to like replicate fake meat, it's kind of like you said you weren't gonna eat that, so don't eat it. Like I'm not gonna like come up with like all these substitutions when it's like just stick to what you can eat instead. So I don't know.
Yeah. So as far as that goes with keto, I guess we have like a pretty relaxed approach with that because the thing is like if you tell someone to eat healthy, like we kind of know what healthy is. Even the USDA guidelines and stuff, they're pretty bad, but if you're following those, you're going to be doing okay even. But people just can't follow those. Like people can't because they have all this hyper palatable food like Oreos, things like that, like you're mentioning. And if those are in your presence, us by nature is not just meant to eat those, a portion of those, one serving of those. We're meant to overeat those and just eat as much as possible until we pass out. So you're coming from that. And that's like the context of your life. And then you're trying to transition to being just a little bit healthier. So I have a lot of sympathy for people that need to have these transitional foods before they get to an actual really healthy diet, like Quest bars, things like that. They're not good. They're not great for your diet. They're going to make like the best way to do it is just jump right in and you'll conquer your sugar cravings. If you keep feeding them with like fake sugars and replacement foods, it's going to just prolong the agony a little bit. But not everyone's ready to just jump right in. So
there are like you were asking though, is there like a bad keto? And I would definitely say there are. There are people like who'll comment and they'll say, "Oh, I just got a gallon of heavy cream and I just sat in my truck and I drank half of it. It was so good."
Carb free.
It says like 0 carb on it. And so people, I think bad in the sense they're just unaware of like how to read a nutrition label. And so they overdo it on certain products that aren't the best for you, like the processed ones.
Well, a lot of the allure for keto is also like, the giant plates of bacon and just overindulgence,
right?
Which is not really what it is about. I mean, the same dietary concepts apply. It's not just like a free thing. It has like a lure of being magical because it's a different metabolic state that your body's in, so people think it's the answer, but it takes some work.
I feel like a lot of what's gotten popular is that I can eat this and this and still lose weight, and it's
right.
So they're gorging on bacon or ice cream. What's it? Halo
top.
Wow, you're paying attention.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So, you have a question?
Yeah. So And I guess the bad stuff is where people kind of are like, oh yeah. I mean, I admittedly was like, keto, like we just gonna sit around and like my dad used to put like sour cream on a like
steak.
a T-bone steak at like 6 a.m. and like sprinkle cheese on it and cover in hot sauce and be like, I'm losing weight, and I'm like, that just doesn't seem right. But that's the extreme though. It's the same with veganism. You got people, like we said, gorging on this fake stuff. But I want to talk about the side effects. You guys probably are experts on this. You probably get asked about this a lot. I feel like when people go vegan, the first thing we always hear is like, I feel amazing. My acne's clearing up. I feel healthy. Blah 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 blah. But then with keto, I feel like I hear that you guys go through like a lot of the criticisms are a lot of crazy ass side effects.
Yeah. Are these things that you're going to go through? Or are these things that you can avoid? You know, like it's like hair loss or your breath smells, like all these crazy things. So how do you avoid those, or is this just unavoidable?
Yeah, the big one is the keto flu, which is just kind of a thing that happens. It's pretty unavoidable. It goes at like varying degrees, but that's just your body's depleting itself of glycogen. Like you're not giving it any carbs, so then it's really low on electrolytes. And that's why I'm saying supplementing electrolytes is pretty crucial, especially in the beginning. So you get like headaches, you just feel really low energy and pretty terrible for like 3 or 4 days. That's kind of how it works. Yeah, it's not ideal.
Do you feel that again and again, like every time you go off of it, or no? No, definitely not as much, unless you do it for a real prolonged time. Like think of adapting to keto. It's kind of the same in reverse, to where once you have the metabolic pathway built up of like, I'm doing keto, my body's running on ketones, it does that by default. Okay.
And it's hard to change that. You have to make an effort to change it back by just eating carbs repeatedly over the course of like a week or so. But and then like the hair loss is not that common of a thing. Some people do report that it happens. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I don't think it's like a vitamin or mineral deficiency as much as it is just with like a radical change in diet.
Or radical weight loss.
Or weight loss. Maybe some things are happening there. I'm not entirely sure about that. And then the breath is, when you're first starting, you will get that a lot of the time. It's the acetone. It's a byproduct of ketone production. That's why they actually have like breath meters that can measure your ketones. But yeah, that does happen at the start. A lot of these things are just like acute things when you start, and then they go away over time.
As you transition.
Your body just figures things out a little bit more. What are some other side effects though? I guess another side effect that maybe people don't realize is your athletic performance definitely takes a hit for like a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you're so used to just having that quick explosive glucose energy, and when it's not there, it's really kind of weird at first. Like for example, doing a 100-meter sprint, you're going to be better doing that when you have glucose. And a lot of people, like everyone's so diehard with their diet. I don't know why. Like there's certain benefits to keto, a lot of benefits. We do it because we think the benefits outweigh the downsides.
Right.
But like doing a 100-meter sprint, like I wouldn't say Usain Bolt should be doing a keto diet. He's not going to be as fast for sure.
Do you say there is? Sorry, you keep that like is messing that. Sorry. Do you ever promote, like, say you have an athlete that's trying to do ketosis, if they had like a run or they were like a marathon run or something, to eat a high carb meal before that event or whatnot? Like, is that allowed?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but I actually think this presents you with some cool options, and I think people are starting to turn to this. But if you have the metabolic pathway built up to where you can use ketones and you can use glucose, if you start the race, like just right before the race, maybe 20 minutes before, they have those gel packs that are just pure quick carbs.
Yeah.
You can take those, and you can still take those all throughout the race like normal runners do. And then when you get through those, you don't like bonk, I think the term they use is, as hard, because someone who's running on glucose, once they burn through the glucose, they're not as good at using the fat for fuel. And you have like a much bigger fuel tank of fat.
Right.
So I do think there's definitely some promise. I think it still needs to be researched a little bit more. But yeah, when you're in ketosis and then you fuel with some quick carbs during runs, that could be a big edge on the competition.
I never thought of it like that.
Speaking of like long-term studies and stuff, when you look up ketosis, obviously you're directed right back to Dr. Atkins and 15, 20 years ago when this all seemed to get exciting.
Yeah. Do you try to pull away from that image?
What is it? Is there a difference between his? I mean, he wanted people in ketosis, but is there a difference between the keto diet and the Dr. Atkins diet or whatever that was called?
So their phase 1 is essentially a keto diet, right? It's like the first phase in the induction phase of an Atkins diet is a keto diet. And then you transition into more it's really high protein, I would say moderate fat, and then low carb. And not even as low carb as a keto diet. So low carb could mean under 100 grams, but a keto diet is specifically 20 net carbs usually.
Yeah, and the big difference is the fat intake. So that, in my mind, makes it way more sustainable, and you just feel a lot better. This is something within a keto diet we've experimented with a lot, is the fat to protein ratio. We've gone up to like 35% calories from fat, which is a lot. From protein, I mean, which is a lot. And now we do closer to like 80% calories from fat, and that's just way more sustainable, and you feel a lot better because you start deriving your energy from fat. So you really notice. Like when you have a good high-fat meal, you feel more energized. You just feel better.
Do you guys count your calories? I know you have a lot of stuff to keep track of, but is calories one of them?
We do occasionally. It depends on our goals. Like right now, we're doing something very specific, so we are counting our calories and just counting everything. But the idea is, and I think most people just want to get to a point where they can eat intuitively and do well and not think about food quite as much.
Yeah, that's our biggest sell with veganism is when you get into the habits, and it is difficult. I mean, I'm married to someone who cooks some kick-ass meals and has recipes and stuff. On my own, I'd struggle. But once you get into it, like I haven't thought about any nutrient or calorie or anything that's going into my body, and I think that's what everyone kind of wants. But do you lower your calories or like to start?
Right now, we're like tapering our calories every week. We're doing something really specific to hit a certain goal.
Okay.
But when we're not tracking or when we're not like doing something specific for goals, we don't track, and it's pretty easy for me to maintain my weight, which is a huge plus. Like even when I'm eating at a surplus, it's easy for my body to just autocorrect, and then I'm not hungrier the next day or like as hungry, and it's just it balances out, I find.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
How many calories do you guys think you do a day?
I do like 2,600 calories a day, and I'm 6'3", almost 200 pounds. And
I probably do like 1,800. I'm 5'4", 122.
Okay.
And this is like a big debate in the keto community. Is is there a metabolic advantage to doing keto? And we're kind of the opinion that there's not. Basically, like, can you eat more calories when you're doing keto than you could otherwise?
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's pretty average amount. I was reading a lot that like a lot of the criticism of Atkins is that it actually was just extremely limiting calories. So of course you're going to lose weight. But it sounds like you guys aren't, restricting
I think
that.
that's kind of a common thread in a lot of diets that are somewhat sustainable and successful. Yeah, they limit, like even veganism limits the food choices. It limits like all of the terrible foods, like the chocolate chip cookies that are both high carb, high sugar, and high fat.
Right.
Like that's the really bad stuff.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that, like going into work and in the break room there's like ho-hos and it's like, well, I can't eat those because of this diet I adhere to, but it's also good I'm avoiding it.
Yeah, it sets some pretty good ground rules for just the basics.
Yeah.
And I think that's a few things that we could
obviously agree on.
Vegans and ketosis, there's a lot we can disagree on, but I think the biggest advantage to both of these diets is the lack of terrible sugars and refined flour and things like that, which is packed into pretty much everything we come across.
Yeah, I think that's another thing why people get really down with the low or no carb thing is because most carbs people see on a day-to-day basis are terrible, terrible carbs for them. No one really takes their time to think like, oh, I'm going to get, like we get down with like complex carbs, like, your potatoes, sweet potatoes and grains and stuff like that, which wouldn't work in your diet, but people wouldn't even consider that a carbohydrate. The carbohydrates is pasta and cereal. And,
Cheerios.
Yeah, stuff like that. But
do you guys have anyone who tries doing a vegan keto diet?
No, I was just going to ask you that. I looked it up today, and do people do this?
I guess you could.
Yeah. I think people do try and do it, but I definitely think like the sum is less than its parts, basically,
Yeah.
is kind of how that works. Like vegan's pretty good, keto's good, and then when you put it together, it's just worse, I think, in both aspects.
Well, my sister said that. My sister was like, they love challenges, so ask them if they want to do a keto vegan challenge with you. I was like, so
That's definitely something we could do for a week.
People have asked us to do it, and we're just like, that would probably just be bad for our health.
Yeah,
overall.
mine too. But if you're ever interested, I think that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
I used to try a few different really low carb diets, and I had a lot of success with them, like physically, like on the outside, like my body looked the best it ever had, but it just didn't work for me long term. And I guess, there's a lot of things that we disagree on when it comes to consuming animal products. And I guess the biggest thing is Lisa and I feel that, when we are 60, that might be the difference between, like you were saying earlier, Mega, being a healthy, I guess not an elderly person anymore, but a functioning 60-year-old. I mean, the thing that's going to kill most Americans is heart disease and cancer. So I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions about cholesterol and heart disease and high-fat diets, and are you going to make it to 30 or 40?
We do get that a lot. So I think a lot of this is kind of a lot of the studies that like I watched the documentary What the Health, and
that was how I saw you guys. Your reaction.
Oh,
that video was pretty big. I think.
Yeah.
That's how where we first came across you.
That honestly, we could have done a better job with that.
Yeah,
but
I watched the whole thing, and like at the end, I was like, "Why am I still watching this? It's like a half an hour." But I was totally engaged. Sorry.
So yeah, I went down the whole path. I think similar to you guys of kind of trying to figure out nutrition for myself and what seems to make sense to me, and a lot of like the high-fat diets lead to heart disease, higher cholesterol. Like a keto diet, generally, you probably will have a little bit higher cholesterol. I don't necessarily think that means you're at a higher risk for heart disease.
Or that plaque's building up in your arteries as we speak.
Yes, but the correlative studies, so here's kind of how I would look at it. When they're all epidemiological studies and just kind of like human population correlative studies to where in America, the people that eat more processed meats is the big one, are at a higher risk for heart disease and cancer. And I think even people who eat more meat in general in America are at a higher risk for those things. Absolutely. So the way you can kind of look at that, one way to look at it, how a person doing keto would probably look at it is those people. So for the last 40 years, our government has been telling us red meat, don't eat as much of it. Definitely don't eat processed meats, and you want to eat low fat. So the type of person who's eating high fat and a lot of red meat is someone who doesn't care what the current science is saying about health.
Okay.
So that's a type of person, right? And a lot of the studies that are also showing vegan diets, a lot of them show vegan diets to be far superior to any other diet. And then I would say, like, look at the typical person who's a vegan. They're generally very health conscious. And that's kind of just like skewing the data in my mind. I'd like to see some more mechanistic data behind, like, why does fat cause heart disease? In the context of a standard American diet, when you're eating all these trans fats and you're just eating higher fat in general with all the terrible foods, it's probably likely that you're at a higher risk for heart disease.
That makes
but
sense.
in a ketogenic metabolism, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I think the RDAs, we've talked to a lot of people about this, like the RDAs, the guidelines change a bit, right? When you're on a keto diet, because you don't need certain nutrients or you get enough from like the red meat. Like red meat is packed with nutrients, and that's why a carnivore diet is sustainable long term. And a lot of people do it just eating pure meat.
Yeah, I think just that's a big thing. Like the RDA guidelines for the nutrient intake is based on the standard American diet, and it's not the same. Like even someone doing a vegan diet, if you're looking at the RDAs of the ones that the government's giving us of the standard American diet, you probably don't need all those things in those same proportions. It's a little bit different for you.
Right. Well, I think anybody who's being cognizant of what they're eating, like making that choice to be mindful of your health and taking it into your own choices is going to be healthier. So whether it's a ketogenic diet or a vegan diet or I don't know any other diets, but anybody that's going to just be mindful, they're going to be in a healthier state. So yeah, the data, I don't know. You could argue it either way, all day, but it's just we should be pushing. If anything, and I think we've tried to talk about this a lot, is just be mindful of what you're ingesting. Know what's in your food and know, where it came from, and you're going to have a healthier lifestyle. So
yeah, and I mimic this off of, I don't know, like looking at long-term, the studies, Matt, like you were saying, like I've heard that a few times, and that makes so much sense. There's not a lot of vegans tailgating, smoking cigars, pounding Bud Lights. Like that's the guy cooking the steak.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come into, account when you're studying the average American. And then the typical vegan is the guy, sitting home, whatever. But long-term wise, there's, and you guys might know some of these, but there's a lot of cultures where people do live to be 80, 90, 100, and they live a very healthy, vibrant life to the end. And those seem to be primarily plant-based diets. None of them are vegan. They all have some kind of, either goat cheese or, fish or salmon or things like that. But are there any like cultural groups that are just
ketosis?
not ketosis, but like super carnivores?
There actually are a few. I don't know there's one in California that's the vegan ones, right?
It's like a Christian or the
Seventh Adventist.
Yeah, Seventh
Yes.
Advent.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have seen a lot of data based on them. But there is the Maasai is one. I think it's like an African tribe. And then there's also like the Inuit or something that just live. That's like the closest to keto.
Okay.
It's like a lot of fat, like
well, fish are super high in fat, right?
Yeah. So those are the two best data points. And when you look at them, they generally live to be relatively healthy and they don't have, a high risk for any of these diseases. But then when like some of these people are now coming in contact with modern societies, and it's crazy how quick those type of people who have just been isolated to their natural diet, when they start getting like accessibility to Twinkies, like immediately, like in a year, they're in terrible health.
Yeah.
That's like like the Okinawans. Once we put a military base there, they were primarily plant-based with fish, and now they have McDonald's and Burger King, and the new generation there is, developing heart disease and cancer at the same rate as Americans do.
Yeah.
So their parents and grandparents are watching their kids and grandkids like perish and die before they even do. Just crazy. But I guess, that could feed into the argument that it is cultural, that it's what you build your body up to be, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Heart disease scares the shit out of me, so I'm just
No, I think like the common thing that's just been introduced in like I like to look at the historic obesity rates and stuff, and like what have we been changing lately? It's just all this processed and hyper palatable foods. I think that's like the number one thing. So when people do keto and they're like, I'm just not that hungry anymore, it's because you're always hungry for the delicious like chocolate chip cookies and stuff, but you're not always hungry to eat like, eggs, hard-boiled eggs and stuff like that.
No,
And
yeah,
eat,
we get
like
that.
salads and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was. I don't know. Do you have any more questions?
I mean, I don't want to get too into it, but maybe I don't know. It'd be cool to do it again sometimes. I mean, we haven't really talked about like most of the vegans are vegan for compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came on board through environmentalism, and I'm learning more and more that animal agriculture is the bad guy when it comes to environmentalism. At least in my opinion. But then when it comes to health, that's where I think it gets a lot more confusing for me. But
yeah, we can go into that a little. Like, I was a vegetarian for a long time, so I understand the ethical side, obviously, of eating animals. And of course, the conventional agriculture is just terrible. It's horrible. So like, yeah, trying to, and I think like a lot of carnivores that we have had on our podcast, they say cool things like it's our purpose to be the change. Like, yeah, vegans are going to, they're very outspoken about eating animals are bad, but it's really up to the meat eaters to start making changes in the way that, the animals are processed.
Yeah.
But
I actually have a question. So for you guys, so is it that you So is your answer, I guess, to stop eating meat altogether, or is it to change the farming practices and the way we approach animal welfare in that respect?
I think to put out there everyone should be a vegan is a pretty unrealistic claim. And I think that, like you said, the consumer needs to be cognizant of what they're buying. Like, I think that people don't realize the power we hold, and that when you are holding standards higher for, just going into your grocery store, that has so much power that people don't realize. It's just a realistic kind of goal. So know where your food's coming from, only buy from responsible sources, and, don't give in to the cheap meat and the cheap dairy.
Well, that's right. I think the price is a big problem too. We need to sustain our civilization, and that's impossible at the rate we're doing it. So if I can live a vegan life and be happy and healthy and in shape and active, I'm excited about that, and I think anyone could. I'm not going to say eliminate all of it, but I would like to see animal products become a luxury.
Yeah.
And I avoid them 100% just because it's the same way as maybe you guys avoiding a donut. I know if I eat a chicken wing, I'm done. Like I love chicken and meat, and it was something it's easier for me to be 100%. But in reality, I just think it needs to be a luxury, not just for health and compassion in the environment, but we're just not going to last at this rate.
We don't have enough land
or water.
I mean, our population is going up exponentially, and most of those people aren't vegan. So they're going to want to eat meat and dairy, and we don't have enough land to sustain that. Not to get into it, but like the West currently, there's this huge new thing that they want to euthanize all these wild horses.
Oh, here we go. Hold on to your hats, guys.
all these wild horses that are in the West, and they skew it as that the wild horse population is going up exponentially, but it's not. It's just that we need more room in the West to farm cattle, and these wild horses are taking the land. So it's just we need more and more land to produce more and more food. And we don't need that. Maybe just change your diet a little bit. Yeah, you don't need to stop eating meat and dairy altogether, but, eating plants or growing plants is so much easier than growing a cow. Water usage and the pollution and stuff. It's just insane. So I don't know.
What do you guys think about these lab created meats they're trying to work on now?
It's funny because so this guy that I know, Nathan Runkle, is the head of MFA, and he's like
the Mercy for Animals. It's like big LA type.
It's like a PETA wannabe
PETA type thing.
Anyways, I feel like he'd be really offended.
Him and like Moby just had a big festival in LA for like veganism. But
he's working with some of the scientists putting that together, and he ate like a $3,000 meatball. So lab meat, in our opinion, I probably would use it very, very minimally. Like it would be like a Christmas dinner or something. But like I said before, I decided to not eat meat. I'm just not gonna eat meat. It's like just that simple.
I'd eat it. I eat purple Doritos once in a while too. It's a luxury, but it's. I don't think it's gonna be.
There's still a lot.
It's probably gonna be less healthy than.
Yeah, like in the production of it, they still they have to use this thing called bovine growth hormone or something, and it's like the blood of like a calf. It's just like this weird stuff.
It's like an embryo, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm not necessarily down. I'm cool with it because it's gonna eventually lead to less animal cruelty. If you can make meat in a lab, then making it in some land, that's better for our environment. That's better for a bunch of cows. But me personally eat it. I think it's like kind of weird.
I think this leads to as the keto diet. Like what can a meat eater do to help with this, like you said, Mega, this insane animal agricultural practices that I don't think anyone would want to justify. Like,
yeah, I guess what you can do, it's tough though, because we're speaking from a place of privilege where we have money to buy whatever kind of meat we want, really. Any kind of groceries we want. We don't even think about money when we go in the grocery store. Right. But there's a lot of people that don't have that luxury. So like, I don't know, like, what do they buy? Do they buy Cheetos? Do they buy like the Doritos? I don't know, like a vegan option at the convenience store.
Yeah.
A lot of times the most the most calorie dense thing you can get in underprivileged place is like a Happy Meal or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So I don't really know what to tell those people, but I think just it's not really going to be a grassroots type of thing, but and not enough people are outraged to really make a change. It just seems like it's going to keep on going the way it is going. But I think people are starting to realize, like, there's definitely, if you start a farm, like a grass-fed meat farm, there's going to be people wanting to buy that. Like, people always want to buy good stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of like what we do.
Where do you guys get your meat from?
Yeah, we get a lot of it from Butcher Box, which is a delivery service. They do grass-fed, grass-finished meats. We want to look into like more local CSA type of stuff, but we also just get it from the grocery store. Sometimes we try to get grass-fed as much as possible.
That's good.
But yeah, it's just it's a tough situation to be in because when you go to the grocery store, and I think you guys even had a podcast on this, the subsidies in the meat industry versus like vegetables. Like, it's hard to tell someone to go and spend $4 on like 50 calories of spinach. Like, that doesn't make sense for you to do. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of a predicament we're in.
No, we're in it too, man. We get it. It's, you know, we teach high school for we're in a developing. What do I?
Lisa
call
gets
it?
in trouble for saying we
Like,
live in the ghetto, but we live in urban Columbus, Ohio. Didn't you live in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, we teach in Columbus City schools.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we deal with our students eating very, very nutrient, like devout foods, and it's really frustrating because we see their health crumbling like in front of our eyes, and they're in high school. So it's very frustrating.
I mean, it seems like we're picking up on this a lot more. Like, everyone's paying more attention to health lately, so I can only imagine it's going to get better and better.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that was a good conversation, guys.
Yeah.
Got deep. Okay. Well, thanks for being on. And to end, we want to know what you guys are having for dinner. Or I don't know. Yeah, dinner.
I am going to have. I actually already have it in my Fitness Pal. You guys might not like to hear it, but I'm going to. Lately, I've just been doing egg yolks. I've been not eating the whites as much. I save them sometimes. So I'm going to do like 3 egg yolks, a sausage, and some collard greens, and some butter. Just kind of like a scramble.
Okay.
And I'm going to do a sausage as well with some pork carnitas, some spinach, and sour cream.
Awesome.
Whoa, baby, yeah.
What are you guys having?
Yeah.
We're having a taco salad.
What's in that?
I made cauliflower and walnut, like beef, you know?
Textured vegetable protein.
No, not that
Oh.
stuff. Like what
Never
I just
mind.
said, cauliflower and walnut beef.
No.
And
Oh, that's a keto
that is
meat right there.
So cauliflower is low carb, right?
Yeah.
We use cauliflower all the time. So
Boom, look at that.
yeah, all right. We're gonna have a keto vegan dinner. That's awesome.
Are your kids also eat, I'm assuming, a vegan diet as well, right?
No. So
Sort of.
we have a 9-year-old who's my stepson, his original, and then we have a 9-month-old baby, and he's obviously just not vegan. I mean, he's eating formula.
Yeah, but he's on the soy formula.
He is on soy formula.
But the 9-year-old's interesting because it's a 50-50. His
Right.
mother is
It's a
not,
battle.
We are, so it's interesting to watch that process. But we are raising a vegan baby, so we'll see how that goes.
Did you breastfeed?
I did breastfeed, but sadly it stopped without my control.
Did like 6 months.
I did like 6 months. Yeah, I just like stopped. It didn't. I don't know. It's a crazy concept. So.
Oh, how do you guys feel about soy consumption?
In like regards to like man boobs. You know?
Yeah. So this is a thing a lot of people will talk about on keto.
I mean,
soy.
I was worried about it first because that's what I had heard before I was keto before I was vegan, even when I was eating low carb and just trying to be healthy. Something about a big glass of milk just didn't seem right, and I really enjoyed that soy formula or soy milk had so much more protein in it. So I started drinking a lot of that, and but then I started reading things like, oh, soy's bad. So I was always a little freaked out about it. I don't know. It's a long story, but my understanding of it is that you can't get too much of it, but we do restrict it.
Soy estrogen is different from estrogen you're going to get from cow's milk. So your body's not going to process it the same way. Like when you're eating estrogen from milk, that's a very hormonal thing in itself. Like my breast milk was very hormonal because it's just that's what it is. The soy estrogen is just not processed in our body the way that estrogen went. So you're not going to get man boobs from it. But as soy, as in anything, you shouldn't overindulge in something. So you shouldn't be doing, like a glass. Watch your servings, but watch your servings about everything. You shouldn't overindulge everything, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't have a beef.
I'm on the same page. No,
Yeah.
a lot of people think like the second you start eating soy, you get man boobs. But when I was a vegetarian, I was eating like 80 grams a day, like something crazy. I was just eating tofu all the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any bad effects. But I think this is just like the case of if you want to believe something just because you want to believe it, you can. Like I think there's like one case where a guy ate like 200 grams of soy a day and he developed man boobs or something.
I was
and now
just going to
like,
say that. Like I did the research and I found that one article,
Yeah.
the one guy, they traced it back to a ton of milk and a ton of tofu, but it was just
Him.
literally one example, and that's what people run with.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, okay. I don't know. I had a thought. It went out. Sorry.
Well, I guess aside from all of this, we're excited for you guys. You guys seem like you've done very well with your Keto Connect and everything, and
Yeah.
kind of
I
an
feel like
inspiration
I learned
to
some
us
stuff
a little
about
bit.
keto. Like I feel
Yeah.
like I went in with some preconceived notions, and they've changed.
Yeah. Well, just
I think you did a good job with the interview, I think.
Yeah.
we appreciate that. Yeah. Aside from the keto, aside from the vegan, we're aspiring to share this message in a similar way as you guys. I think you guys have a big YouTube presence and then started a podcast. We started a podcast and just for fun, and it kind of took off a little bit. And so then we've tried to open up a little bit of a YouTube presence and Lisa's website and recipes and stuff. But it seems like you guys are doing it right. And
Yeah. How do you get internet famous? We won't air this.
It's hard, but it's just a lot of consistency, honestly. I think like right place, right time. We started it, and then I don't know if we started it like before keto really like got super popular or as it was getting super popular. But yeah, just being consistent. Like we did the same thing for a year basically, like 3 recipes, 3 YouTube videos every week. And it's tough when no one's watching. It feels like no one cares if you put the time in, but it's not worth it until it is, I guess, is what I would say. And if you make like a vegan keto recipe, definitely email it to us and we'll share it and stuff.
Awesome.
that
Definitely.
would be so sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, we really appreciate you guys being on our show, and we like your podcasts and your videos and all that stuff too. So,
If you're ever in Columbus, give us a shout.
and if you need any vegan people,
Yeah.
we'd like to be your go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
thanks
be
for
your
having
mate.
us, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the interview, and I don't know. We'll see you around.
Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
See ya.
Bye.